Well, welcome back, everyone. Nice to see you here. So week 2, and I mentioned last week, the real, surprisingly maybe, the most dangerous thing is this habit of putting things off that are actually pretty important. And I think climate change is like such an obvious example of this, where we're just too busy. And there are a lot of things to be busy about, of course, to really deal with how do we treat the planet, what's the best way to take care of this planet so that it can be sustained. And it's somewhat similar to this predicament because, as I mentioned briefly, oh, by the way, Jen is not feeling well tonight, so she's not going to be able to join us. But hopefully we'll be back next week. She's doing okay, but just has a stomach flu or something like that. But it's just that real example of how we tend, it's very common for us human beings to put off something that's ultimately really important, but isn't staring us in the face. And an example of this in terms of our spiritual practices is we have a mind, we have a heart, sensitive mind, heart. And how much time did you spend today? I mean, you're here. How much time did we spend yesterday? How much time generally have we spent getting curious about the mind, what the mind is doing, how the mind's doing? Just to be interested, what is it to have a mind? What is a mind? And not to think about this stuff intellectually, because whatever the heart or the mind is, it's an observable thing, right? It's here. Like, we're not interested in what the mind, heart is theoretically. We're interested in what the heart and mind is practically. And how can I take care of the heart and mind? And how might I be contributing to what in Buddhism we call dukkha? Because suffering isn't a very good translation of the word dukkha. I forget if we mentioned it last week. It really means a wheel that's out of true. So let's do a little practice just for 5 or 10 minutes. Then I'll speak a little bit more. We'll do a longer sit later. So just sitting in a relaxed way as best you can. And we'll do the body scan meditation that we did last week. So we ask the attention to pay attention, to notice the sensations at the top of the head. Now, these are very ordinary, often not nondescript, like the weight of the hair, or maybe some pressure around the skull. Or if you don't have much hair, you might feel the temperature of the air touching the skin. And simply opening and receiving the sensations along the sides of the head, back of the head. Take your time. So we're doing a little exercise where we're choosing to be interested in this specific aspect of our present moment experience. Feeling the forehead as if we're letting awareness soak in, connect with the sensations at the forehead, temples. You can even feel the air touching the skin and any tension below the surface. And taking some time and simply open in this receptive way to the face. Noticing any muscular tension around the eyes, for example. And just allowing whatever sensations you feel, allowing them to be. Feeling any sensations around the mouth, whether the lips are touching or slightly apart, whether there's tension in the jaw, and for a few more moments, feeling the totality of the head and face, learning how to keep this specific experience in mind and just allowing it to be. So we're not paying attention or opening in order to fix the head or face, but just this simple, honest opening or connection. It's like this now. And can it be okay that the head and face feel like this now? And just noticing for a few more moments the particular effort to keep these sensations in mind in a non-controlling, non-judging way. In other words, what it is to be intimate with the head and face, letting things be. And when you feel ready, let the awareness drop into the neck and the throat. And again, just learning how to be intimate, to be receptive to whatever's being felt in the neck, in the throat. Just letting these sensations be what they are. In a way, it's a new skill we're learning how to be both present or intimate, in this case with the neck and throat, but at the same time not trying to fix, not needing to judge or control. So now soaking into the tops of the shoulders and the shoulder joints, taking your time, being curious and open, letting the sensations be what they are, not afraid or learning to be unafraid to feel whatever's here in the shoulders to feel. Down both biceps and underarms, the bend of the elbows, feeling the forearms, the wrists, back of the hands, palms, all the fingers, both arms, both hands together. So another way to understand this, we're learning how to be exposed, in this case, to the sensations in the arms and hands, undefended, just feeling what we feel, letting it all be. Getting a clearer sense of what it is to be aware of sensation, letting the sensations be, letting the rest of the world drop way into the background, the periphery. And now we'll move down the torso. So begin in the upper third, so the upper back and the chest. And learning how to be receptive and open interested. Of course, you'll feel some movement as the breath comes in and out, including the movement at the breastbone, including feeling the clothes touching the skin, perhaps. Maybe even sensing the beating heart deep in the chest, and the structure of the rib cage, shoulder blades. And let the awareness soak in, be receptive to the solar plexus and the kidneys and the mid-spine. Take your time. Simply feeling what's here to feel. And then down into the abdomen and down into the lower back. Not afraid to feel, even if it's seemingly nondescript, well, that's what it feels like. So being intimate, being curious, feeling what we feel. The entire pelvis, the obvious touch points of the sits bones against the chair or cushion, the groin. Feel the structure of the pelvis. From the hip sockets, beginning to feel the sensations in the thighs, including the close against the skin of the thighs, vibration, touch points, the bend of the knees, the shins, calves, simply opening to the Achilles, the ankles, down to the heels, sides and tops of the feet, and all the toes. And for just a few more minutes, let's practice this. We could call it an exclusive attention to the sensations of the body sitting, the totality. So we're not trying to tune into any particular place, but more receptive, open, even undefended, as we feel the totality of the sitting body. Sitting is like this now. Can this be okay? Just to be open and sensitive, keeping the body, the sensations of the body in mind. So for 2 minutes, we practice a non or not forgetting of these sensations of the sitting body. Just keeping it in mind. Whole body awareness. Letting this be the most important thing, keeping the body and mind. And remember this gesture if you like, you can use that. Or whatever you like to do to end your sitting time. Adjust the body as you need to. If you have some stiffness in your legs, stretch them out. Whatever works for you. And simply, let's just take a few seconds and notice what's the effect of having directed our attention. So it was a real training, right? Because normally the attention is all over the place. We notice somebody, we remember something, we think about the future, right? But not that it was perfect for any of us, right? But we had the simple exercise. Okay, honey, pay attention to the top of the head, just, there's no right or wrong way, but just systematically inviting the attention to open. And it's just kind of a trick when we use what we call an exclusive object of awareness as opposed to more open attention to whatever's predominant moment by moment. There are different approaches to cultivating mindful awareness. One approach is to tell the mind what to pay attention to. Top of the head, sides of the head, back of the head, face, neck and throat, shoulders, arms and hands, torso. I mean, there's many things, many objects we could ask the attention to attend to. And when we're, just like we have to do at work, I got to attend to this project. I got to attend to chopping the carrots, or I might lose a finger, or driving home, or I might cause an accident, right? So this is not an uncommon thing we have to do, direct the attention. But what we're doing, remember those two values we talked about last week, relaxed and alert. So when we're doing, whether we're doing a more open style, where the attention is paying attention to whatever's predominant, moment by moment, or we're using a more exclusive meditation object, like at the end of this short sit, we had the whole body as our exclusive meditation object. The mind still wanders, but we know, okay, honey, we're doing this now. We're paying attention to this. Because part of what mindful awareness knows is it knows what I'm supposed to be paying attention to. And it's either in terms of our practice that we're learning these 5 weeks, whatever's predominant, or whatever meditation anchor we've decided to work with, right? So sometimes when you sit down, you might say to yourself, I'm just going to do a body scan meditation. And then when you're distracted, you know how to start over. Oh yeah, I'm doing a body scan meditation. So where did I don't remember where I left off. Well, I'll start again at the top of the head then, right? Because we know this is a training. And it's like a puppy that doesn't know where to pee, and it looks like it's going to pee on your new nice rug, and you grab the puppy and you put it on the newspaper, or you bring it outside on the grass. This is where you pee. But the puppy doesn't quite get it, and it wanders around, and you keep, and it's a little bit like when we're using an anchor, a meditation object, this exclusive thing. It doesn't help to be angry at the mind for wandering, and it doesn't help to be controlling. What helps is what we could call persistence, or not giving up. Just like some of you probably have been parents, and you had to train your kids to do this or that. It doesn't help to give up, or you actually have a pet. What helps is consistency, persistence, and kindness. Having a sense of humor, but that doesn't mean not being persistent. It just means we're not going to freak out, because it's the nature of the mind to wander. So why get angry about that? That's the practice. A lot, like when whether we're using an exclusive meditation object or just aware of whatever's predominant, we're always going to be noticing that the mind is either distracted or about to be distracted or was just distracted, and then we're reestablishing the thread of present moment awareness. Whether we're coming back to a specific meditation object, like the body scan, or the whole body, or the breath, or hearing. These are the ones that we're going to be emphasizing in the class. So this opening set, we did the body scan, and you could just keep doing that, of course, if you had more time, or you could do it once and then go to whole body awareness, right, which is a different practice, very much related, of course, but now we're not moving the awareness through different parts, but feeling aware of the totality. Like when we sometimes listen to an orchestra, we could tune into the wind instruments, and then the percussive instruments, and then the brass, but we could also, in a sense, lean back or hear the totality of the orchestra playing together. And that's like whole body awareness as a meditation anchor or meditation object. Same with hearing. When we use hearing as a meditation object, we're not trying to pick out different sounds. I mean, of course, if there's an interesting sound, it's going to come into the forefront of attention, and the other sounds will be there in the periphery. That's just natural, right? We're not doing that. Dramatic or interesting sounds just will immediately be in the forefront of attention, and everything else will be there in the background, and then something else. And when nothing is interesting, then we'll have that more kind of global sense. But the point is, we're not trying to pay attention to anything in particular, and we're not trying to figure out what's that sensation or what's that sound or what's going on in my pinky when we're doing a body scan. We're just aware of what's there. And that really, it's kind of radical, that receptivity. It's initially, if you haven't done much of awareness practice, it's really incredible how receptive the mind can be. And we tend to equate receptivity with passivity. But when we're really receptive, there's not like, you could live your whole day, a very busy whole day, in that receptive mode. Now this is being known. Now it's like this. And it wouldn't stop you from doing everything you have to do, even really dramatic stuff. I'm going to get a divorce, I'm going to get remarried, quit my job, find a new job, paint my house, So it could be a busy day. But the receptivity is just that awareness, this is being known. It's emphasizing the awareness, not the doing. But we're not saying no to the doing, because that's doing too, right? So receptivity is kind of this quality that's so central to mindful awareness practice, to be receptive, doesn't get in the way of activity. Which is why a little later tonight I'll introduce walking meditation, because it will be useful at least a couple times each week. And it could be built into your schedule anyway, like you have to park far away from where you work, so that's your walking meditation. That 20 minutes or that 10 minutes, you're in that radical receptivity, but still you're walking, you're seeing, you're hearing, thoughts are coming and going. But what we're keeping in mind is this openness, this receptive openness. Oh, this is being known. Thinking is being known. Seeing the red dress is being known. Judging the red dress is being known. Liking this person is being known. Trying to direct my attention back to my legs and feet is being known. Like that controlling, oh, I'm supposed to be with the walking. Okay, controlling is being known. Feeling the feet, touching is being known. Because one of the things that's hard for people who are newer to practice is we think, this is a thought that then has implications for how we practice. We think that awareness needs somebody doing the awareness. Or to be a meditator, we need to be a somebody meditating. So this emphasis on receptivity is really about understanding what wise effort is. What kind of effort is needed. I forget if I did this last week. I think so, where I had you touch your hand or your arm. Did I do this? Okay, just anywhere. You could touch anything, of course, but just maybe touch your wrist or have one hand touch the other hand or put your hand on your thigh, whatever's convenient. So now this is the, super special meditation object, touching. Touching is being known. I'm kidding, right? So, but it could be just as good as any other meditation object, right? Because now we're going to do a 45-second or so experiment. How much effort, what kind of effort is needed to keep this simple experience of touching in mind? So really, again, we're practicing on not forgetting of the experience of this hand touching. Okay? So let's begin. You can close your eyes if it's easier. And you're just keeping touching in mind. Practicing on not forgetting. Touching is like this. See if you can encourage a more natural curiosity or interest, not forced. See if you can relax, be soft. And for the last few seconds, just see if you can notice what, if anything, interrupts the continuity of present moment awareness of the hand touching. And there's a simple pleasure. You can open your eyes and there's a simple pleasure. Maybe you felt it. I mean, it's so simple, but it's real, and we want to understand it. There's a real pleasure, not in touching your hand, or your arm rather, but the real pleasure is the pleasure of all that was dropped, all of what the mind wasn't doing was a relief. Because we weren't thinking about tomorrow. I mean, if you were really keeping touching in mind, curious, and the awareness that there was a fullness or wholeness of attention to the simple experience, then you weren't doing other stuff with your mind. Does that make sense? So this is, simple. This is not rocket science. It's not easy, actually, but it's really an important thing to learn. It's kind of a cliche, it can be at least, to just do one thing at a time. But what we're really talking about is that unwavering, or that non-distractedness, that non-superficiality, non-dissipation of attention. And this is where meditation objects, meditation anchors, provide really useful training. They're not so conducive to daily life practice, because if I'm just focusing on this when I'm having a conversation at work, it's going to be a mess, or driving home, we won't live. So generally through the day, we're using more of an open awareness practice, where with whatever it is that's predominant or relevant in that moment, that's what we're mindfully aware of. Oh, this is being known. This is what the mind is knowing. This is what the mind is doing. But we're still reflectively aware. We still are aware of what the mind is knowing and doing. But it's doing, in one moment it's this, and the next moment it's that, right? It's changing all the time. But one of the nice things about training also, like when you're doing your formal sitting practice, not even for the whole time, but for at least, let's say, just making up a percentage, at least half of the time. So if you're sitting for 20 minutes, 10 minutes of that 20 minutes, or 15 minutes of a 30-minute sit if you have that much time, or maybe some of you can sit for 40 minutes or an hour even, that would be great. Or 2 times a day for 30 minutes, that would be great. But at least half of the time, as beginners, really work with a specific anchor. And again, you have the body scan meditation. A little later tonight, we'll do the breath meditation again, where you're using just a simple place where you tend to feel the breath easily. Like some people, that means just feeling that touching as the breath comes in the nostrils and goes out. Other people, it's easier to feel as a rising or a movement in the abdominal wall, that rising and falling, or that expansion and contraction. It doesn't really matter, right? Because these are just a skillful means for gathering the energies of attention around something ordinary, so that the attention isn't going to do what it normally does, be superficial and dissipated and fragmented and all over the place. Paying attention to thought, wondering what that sound was, where did that person get that t-shirt? It's like, that's our daily life. And so our minds feel a lot of the time superficial, dissipated, fragmented, discombobulated, fried, right? And we feel like we need a nap or a drink or, a reset of one kind or another, a good sleep, because of that absence of experiencing the mind that is relatively unified. And in Buddhism, this is really, really important. And so we're going to learn a new word, and we're not going to translate it. I mean, you could call it a unified mind or a stable mind. But the Pali word is samadhi. And it's one of those Buddhist words that more and more people don't translate. And eventually I think it will be kind of an English word like karma, is an English word. And some of these other words, Buddhist words, are kind of nirvana, nibbana. It's a word that we use, not that we understand them. But samadhi is a good word because it really is the opposite of a dissipated, superficial, scattered, weak, fried, fragmented mind. And it has a very specific feeling, which is pleasant. It's that the pleasure of non-distraction, that it's a unified or a gathered feeling. The heart-mind has that unified, gathered feeling. You want to get to know that feeling because it creates a positive feedback. You'll want to do more and more practice because it feels good. And so how do we do this? Well, we have to learn what is the wise effort that supports samadhi, that unification, that gathering, that stabilization of present moment awareness. And what kind of efforts are counterproductive? That's our homework, especially for the first months of practice, getting a sense of what kind of efforts help develop that pleasant, stable, unified quality. And what kind of efforts am I making in my daily life and in my meditation time that are counterproductive, that stir the mind up, that scatter the mind, that tighten the body and mind, right? We're going to do both. It's okay, because when we catch the mind relating in ways that don't support unification, that's really good to recognize. Oh, this is not the way. That's an insight, right? We want to learn what's not the way, just like we want to learn what's actually supportive. And like I mentioned, the key to doing this work is that flavor, that pleasant in an inner sense. Like, do we know what a stable, beautiful, settled heart-mind looks and feels like? Well, we should. We've bumped into it at times. Sometimes we're taking a walk or we're hanging out with a friend and we just feel good and we think it's good, it's because it's a nice walk or because I love my friend. But it actually, the pleasure you're feeling might be that because you feel safe, because of these pleasant conditions, the mind, the heart is unified. It's not scattered. It's not thinking about this and that and worrying about this and planning that and problem solving and fantasizing. Because it's pleasant, the mind isn't going anywhere. It's settled naturally in the present moment. So much of the things, most of the times we remember being happy, it's because there was samadhi. There was a natural unification, a non-scatteredness of the heart and mind. But we don't understand it, so we say, oh, it's because I like ice cream. Well, yeah, we do. It's a pleasant flavor, but it's the pleasantness of the ice cream that stops the mind for a little bit, 10 seconds, 2 minutes, from wanting other stuff. Because I've got what I want. I'm home, I'm on the couch, my four-legged friend is next to me, I'm listening to the music I like, I'm eating something, drinking something that I like to eat or drink. And we might think, oh boy, it's so nice to have all these pleasant things. But what we want now as meditators, as people interested in the Buddhist teachings, we want to see what's really going on. Oh, interestingly, the mind isn't running off here and there. I mean, sometimes we have nice things and the mind is, have you noticed we're on vacation and we're thinking about the next vacation or worrying about work. It's like, why did I go all the way to this place to... So just because we have nice, pleasant experience doesn't mean the mind is going to settle. What we're learning in meditation practice is how to do that just in a very ordinary way, by training the mind to be in the present moment. And we use a meditation object sometimes, that's what I'm talking about, an anchor, to help. It's a skillful means that can help that. So we'll have time for questions and discussions after the sit, but why don't we stand? I'll say a few words about walking meditation. And for people at home on Zoom, you don't need to be able to see your screen. As long as you can hear me, that will be good enough. So there are different ways to do the walking meditation. So I'm kind of using this time to stand so that you can stretch your legs, just to talk a little bit about walking meditation. Then we'll do about a 30-minute, 25-minute sit with the breath. But walking meditation can be done in a long hallway at home or a room that isn't too cluttered. You know, it's nice to be able to take 10 to 15 steps before you have to turn around. But you could also just walk around the block. It's not that you can't sort of walk along the river or around one of the lakes. It's just that having a set, like when you go to the monasteries in Asia, generally the nuns and monks, they have their own little kuti or cabin, and then they'll have right next to it a little walking lane about 40 or 50 feet. And it's their own lane. Nobody else uses it. And so they sit in meditation in their little cabin and sleep there too. And then when they do walking, they use that walk, and then they just walk that 30 to 50 feet. They stop, they turn around, they walk that 30 or 50 feet, they stop. And it can seem like, that is so stupid. You know, like, because it does look a little ridiculous to walk back and forth down your hallway, mindfully turn around. But the thing is, we're learning that the skill of being present isn't dependent on sitting still. Sitting still is like kindergarten, when we meditate in a comfortable sitting posture. Walking meditation is like first grade. And then graduate school is living our life, you know, where you're just, things are coming at you, you got responsibilities, and you still have that intention to have that continuity of present moment awareness, where the wisdom in the mind recognizes, oh, this is what's being known. So that's what we mean by mindful awareness, that recognition. So with walking meditation, when you want and need an anchor, then use the physicality of each step, just that moment where the foot makes contact with the earth, the floor, you know. And if you need a little bit more support, you can even name that silently, of course, in your mind, just stepping or touching or placing each time the foot comes out, or even, you know, left, right, because sometimes just that mental noting keeps the thinking mind, the problem-solving mind, the planning mind, because it's got something else it has to do. It's going to name when the foot makes contact with the floor. Placing, like that. So you can do around the block or around a lake, but the trouble is when your mind starts to wander, you might not notice that it's wandered until you're done with your 4-mile loop. Right? But when you have a 30-foot trail or a little place in your backyard that you walk back and forth on, then every time you get to the end and you stop, you'll know, oh yeah, that's right, I'm doing walking meditation. Thinking. I was just thinking. And any reverberations from that thinking? Feels like this. And then you notice the turning, you know, and you don't have to do it micro slow. You can just find a pace that works. Standing, stepping like that. And then stopping. You notice the stopping. You notice the turning. It's not like you have to look or act like a robot. I'm doing it slow because I don't have that much space. I'm all wired up. But you get the idea. And you might start at a sort of normal pace, but as you settle in and start to feel the samadhi, that unification, you might just notice naturally, not that you're forcing yourself to, that you slow down. And I'd encourage you to do that lane walking where you have some distance and you're private, so you're not worried about what people are thinking, you know. And then another time, do it just out in the world, like I mentioned earlier, from your car to where you're walking, to the store. Or you walk around the block 2 times, or something like that. Could be, you know, I'd give yourself at least 15 minutes to do it, because it will feel a little awkward for the first few minutes. And you want to get a taste of how valuable walking meditation is. We tend to stereotypically think of meditation being the sitting. But really, we want to reform that idea. Meditation is all day long, or as long as we're awake at least, right? And then to get good at it, we go to kindergarten. So we put in 30 minutes a day, ideally at least. But if you only have 2, that's better than none, right? So let's say 30 minutes a day, you go back to kindergarten. Then a couple times of the day, you remember when you're walking from here to there, you're in first grade. And you're really using just the physicality of walking to gather the attention in the present moment. And there's another way I'll just mention, because it's a little bit more interesting. Like this would make more sense, like if you're going to try to have some real continuity when you're walking along the river or through the neighborhood or around one of the lakes. You could just rotate through the physicality of your legs and feet, touching, 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 maybe for about a minute, and then switch to seeing for about a minute, where you're just being mindful of seeing. You're not looking, you're just in that more receptive mode of seeing. Seeing is being known. Seeing is being known. Now, you don't have to use that phrase, but to convey this to you, I need to talk, right? But you can, from time to time, when you've been distracted, just say again, oh yeah, seeing is being known. And then what do you think the next one's going to be? Hearing. And then back to the physicality, feeling the sensations. And then seeing, and then hearing. So you're just rotating through those 3 sense gates, because they're pretty obvious when you're walking. And it keeps the mind interested. So interested and relaxed, right? Alert and relaxed. Those are those 2 primary values. Okay? So bring whatever learning you get from your walking this week back next week, because it would be nice to hear from those of you on Zoom and those here in the room. What did you learn about mindful awareness, trying to bring it into activity? Because like I said, we want to be able to do it all day long, like a lifestyle of mindful awareness. So now we don't have any, this is like where we're walking and we don't have too many distractions. We don't have any other obligations but to be aware of the present moment, right? So don't have your earbuds in and doing this or that. You're just gathering the attention in the present moment, using the physicality of the body as an anchor. But when you hear a bird or something really interesting is happening, then stop walking and know that this is being known, whatever it is. Seeing is being known, or hearing is being known, or some emotional storm arises, you stop. Okay, feeling emotion, remembering a story, remembering something from the past. Okay, it feels like this. And then when that strong, dramatic stuff stops, then go back to the walking, just to keep it simple. Okay? And remember, there are handouts for each of the weeks. So one of the handouts is on walking meditation. It's a wonderful teacher from the West Coast, Gil Fronsdal, just wrote a few-page description of walking meditation. So you can always check in with that. And these sessions are recorded and up on our YouTube channel. So let's sit back down. We'll get ready for a guided breath meditation now. Remember to sit in a way that's comfortable, that supports alertness. Don't be shy about using a chair if that's what works best for you. It's nice to make a little bit of a ritual as you settle in. Maybe like taking 3 or 4 longer, deeper, easy breaths where you're filling the lungs and then mindfully emptying them. And use that deep breathing as a way of coming more fully into the experience of the body. You have all the time in the world. And eventually, when you feel ready, just let the breathing continue on its own. We trust the body to breathe. And before we do the breath meditation, we'll take a few minutes and we'll practice with the anchor of hearing. So the most important thing is just to relax, soften, and notice that hearing is already happening. So learn how to cultivate an interest in the experience of hearing so that we can keep hearing in mind. So again, we're practicing a not forgetting the experience of hearing. And remember those 2 values of alertness and relaxation. They really help. And at times, when it's needed, when it's helpful, you can use a phrase like, hearing is being known. But be on the lookout if you're using those phrases as a kind of command. It should be light, gentle. Hearing is being known. Just hearing. Sounds are being heard. Something like that. From time to time when it's needed or helpful. And part of what we're learning is to be interested in what's ordinary. And take some time now and notice the body sitting, and part of what's here in the body is that ordinary movement of the breath, coming in, going out. And thankfully we don't need to control the breathing process because the body can be trusted to breathe whatever that might be like. But just notice that natural rhythm of breathing in and breathing out. And notice where the sensations of breathing in and breathing out are relatively clear, so they can be kept in mind. Breathing in is like this. Breathing out is being known. And don't make superhuman intentions, just a willingness to be intimate with one in-breath from the beginning to the end of the in-breath without any wavering or any forgetfulness. And then to be with one exhalation from the beginning to the end. So even one half breath at a time is quite an accomplishment. And notice the quality of gathering and settling. The mind and the breath might become more refined and peaceful with more continuity. And then it all can be lost when the mind is swept away by some thought. And then that willingness to begin again. So we're cultivating a beautiful patience and persistence. Let's take some time. I won't speak for about 10 minutes, and you can just find your way. Doing the best you can, let that be good enough. Remember, we're simply tracking the ordinary experience of breathing in, breathing out, in a way that allows the mind to drop its obsessions and its need to plan and do this and that. And we can feel that pleasure of a gathered, unified mind and heart. When you notice that the mind has been distracted, don't feel like you have to rush back. Take a moment and simply acknowledge it's like this, feels like this. You don't need to be afraid of distraction, just acknowledge how it is in the body, in the mind. And in that acknowledgement, you'll sense the breath moving right here in the moment, the next in or out breath. And then we can just begin to attend, keeping the breathing in and the breathing out in mind. Remembering the two values of relaxation and alertness, how they work together, support each other. And now for the last 4 minutes or so, let's let the eyes open. We're not really looking around at all, but just aware of seeing, aware of hearing, aware of the sensations of the sitting body, aware of the breath moving here in the body. And of course, aware of the thinking and conceiving mind, doing what it does. So we'll begin to practice this open awareness. We're not directing the attention anywhere now. It might feel to you a little messier, a little more wild or whatever. But just keep remembering that whatever it is, it's something being known. So if your mind is reacting, oh, okay, this is being known. Feels like this. Relaxed, alert, letting things be. Keeping the present moment in mind. And this open awareness practice is especially helpful in this insight that awareness, mindful awareness, it isn't dependent on any particular object. Awareness simply reflects or recognizes what's being known, what's being felt. Just notice if the wisdom here could just let everything be. Just allowing. This is being known. Take a little time, adjust your posture, stretch out if you need to. So you're comfortable. So I mentioned last week, or Jen mentioned, I forget, but so much of the learning that happens in these introduction classes comes about because people are willing to ask questions. And we just learn so much from the questions that people ask, and just even if it's not in the form of a question, but just sharing an experience in your sitting practice, or bringing mindfulness into some part of your daily life, or in the future walking practice. So we have about 10 to 15 minutes. It'd be nice to hear from a few people, either here in the room or on Zoom. What have you been learning? What's felt challenging, either tonight in the practices we've done, or at home? Questions that are emerging. So for those online, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and start to speak. And those in the room, just signal to me. And I'm going to ask people who are in the room to come up front, and you can use the mic so that the people online can hear you. Anybody? Let's start with the people on Zoom. Any learnings from your practice tonight or during the last week? Deborah, do you want to start?
I had a question, not really a learning, but my husband was here doing it with me, and he was sort of slumped, kind of slouched on the sofa doing it. Is it important to have your spine? I've always been told it should be straight, or in some position where it's relatively straight. And I'm curious, is that true? And if so, why?
Yeah, it's a good question. So should the spine be straight? Well, it's really the same as those two values we've been talking about, relaxation and alertness. So what does relaxation and alertness look in terms of a sitting body? And it kind of depends on how the day's gone for us, because sometimes when we're really activated, we can be alert even lying down. And other days, when we're lethargic or for whatever reason, even sitting, it's going to be hard to be alert, right? We might need to stand, otherwise we'll fall asleep. So don't have too hard and fast of a rule, but understand the underlying values. Is the mind alert? Is the mind clear? Is the mind interested? Is the body and mind relaxed, soft, undefended to some degree, right? It's never going to be perfect, but we want to move in that direction. So as you mentioned, generally speaking, the more the mind is alert, generally the body follows. When we're really oblivious, we're more like this. And when we're alert, there's a kind of, the body reflects that brightness, that alertness. So we can use the bodily posture to support alertness, but we can also use the bodily posture to kind of try to fit some ideal that we saw in a picture book of what a meditator looks like. And that's just another way to suffer, to try to fit some image of a meditator. Yeah, so generally, the more the spine and the integrity of the spine actually isn't straight, it has its natural curves and the vertebrae stack. But there's a sense of the alignment with the head resting on the spine, balanced, and the nose in line with the navel, and the ears over the shoulders. And then the nice thing about that is you can be both supporting alertness, but also because of the alignment, you can be relaxed. That the alignment means you're not using a lot of the core muscles to hold the body up. And I'll take this time just to mention for those, because a lot of us sit in chairs these days, and that's fine. It's totally fine to practice sitting in a chair. But you want to, you probably best not to use a lazy boy chair, right? Because after a few minutes of stabilizing present moment awareness, you tend to slide into sleep because there's too much comfort. So generally, a kitchen chair that is more of a right angle chair. And even a lot of us will need to wean the upper back away from the back of the chair. So maybe just after a while, when you have enough core strength, just support the lumbar part of the spine, the lower part of the spine, but have your shoulder blades a little bit away from the back of the chair when you're sitting, because that effort to be upright can help keep the energy in balance. Now, this is especially true if you tend to get sleepy and do that kind of collapse when you're meditating, because it might be that there's just too much comfort. But if you're sitting cross-legged on the floor and your body's not ready for that, there will be too much pain. And you might be alert, ouch, but you won't be relaxed, right? So that's not good either. So what for you is going to allow your body to support these two values of relaxation and alertness. Some days you're going to need to do it lying down, right? And it's good to practice lying down meditation. I wouldn't use a bed, but like a piece of carpet or a yoga mat, arms to the side, legs comfortably apart. A lot of us need a little pillow so the spine feels like it's in alignment. And in that, it's called savasana in yoga, which means the corpse pose. It's kind of a nice term. That will make you alert. And that can be good for like a 10 or 15-minute meditation. Generally, it's not too many people who can do a lying down meditation for much longer than that before the mind gets too drowsy. So you might be relaxed, you might have a really nice nap, which is a good thing, especially if you're sleep deprived, but you won't have learning, because learning depends on the alertness. The mind has to be interested in the nature of the present moment and what's coming and going. That's where the learning happens, the deepening happens. Good, thanks for that first question. It looked like there was another one online too. Court, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm on the West Coast, so it's 2 hours earlier here for me. And I typically work out in the late afternoon, which would be just before your 5:30 session starts. And I did that last week, and I found that was a mistake because I wasn't able to get into a relaxed mindset when I just came off my workout. And today it was much easier because I did not do that. I did my workout much earlier in the afternoon. So that was a learning experience for me. I had a much better session with you today. Even though I had such a hectic week, I couldn't get everything done that I had to get done in the past week. And I didn't make any time for meditation. I did do the right thing with the exercise, and I was able to get the right mindset and had a very informative and productive session with you today. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Court. And it just, what you said just brings to mind, like, what for each of us, because it's going to be different. Some of you will be doing it first thing in the morning, but it won't be for everyone. And, it will be a function of the families that you live with or the people you live with and your own biological clocks and temperaments. But what for you creates the most supportive conditions? Because that daily formal meditation time, you want as many supporting conditions as you can get. So does that mean you sit at your desk that's cluttered with your bills? Probably not, because just that visual field for some of you is going to be activating. Well, where in your home can you sit that isn't going to activate any more than you need to activate? Or maybe sitting in front of a window that looks out at a tree. Or maybe you have some corner of one room that doesn't get used too much and isn't too cluttered, and you could kind of get a nice chair there, a nice cushion there, and it's just for the purposes of meditation. And then like Court was saying, what time of day is my energy most balanced? that I actually have some time. Because that settling, when we do have supportive conditions, we've got the right kind of chair and the right time of day, not too hungry, not too full, not too activated from exercise, not too dead to the world from sitting for 4 hours, looking at a screen. When are conditions supportive enough so I can really get a taste of what can happen with this training in mindful awareness, right? Because a lot of what we get from the daily sits is some confidence that this heart can get trained, and that's a good thing. It feels good, and it makes this heart and mind more functional. I become a better human being in all ways. I mean, you could say that developing samadhi is the primary ingredient for any kind of real competence. If we don't have that balanced, stable, non-judging, continuous present moment awareness, it's really hard to do anything. To be a lover, to be an athlete, to be an artist, to be a citizen, to be a business person, to be a friend. Really, we need that stability, that kind, non-judging, stable, balanced, present moment awareness. So it's important because, like Court mentioned about his busy day or busy week, a lot of us, we've got way too much going on, too many duties and responsibilities, too many passions, too many things we care about, health problems, financial issues, living in a world that is scary, to say the least. So then when we sit down, it can be all that unfinished business finally has a time to start reverberating. So how can we find a time where there's some safety to that willingness to just be with what's moving in the body, in the mind, in the heart, and around us. It's really worth thinking about and checking it out, like Court mentioned, trying some different times, different locations, different ways of sitting. Next week, Jen will be doing most of the teaching next week, and Jen's a good person to ask questions about posture too. Good, maybe time for one more. Anybody in the room here in the city? At the retreat, or at our city center rather, before we wrap up for tonight? Questions or sharings of experience? Yeah, please. Do you mind coming forward?
Okay, Nick, they, them. I don't know if you said this last Tuesday or if it was the last Sunday class, but you talked about your experience of way back going into a movie and coming out of that movie and being agitated or irritated, and it has something to do with, I don't know, if you could retell that, because I had a similar experience of having this prolonged period of time of realizing I was totally totally unconscious, and it just sunk my whole day. So.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Yeah, this is the great thing about mindful awareness. We'll just start noticing these patterns. And so the pattern I mentioned last week is a very common one, and you'll have your own version of it, because all of us are dependent on distractions, whatever it is, and it'll be different for each of us. But really look at what we get when we do that distraction, that thing we like. Looking on Zillow, or this website or that website that I got to check every day, or going through catalogs. Does anybody do that anymore? I mean, mostly it's online. But the different things that we do to fill up the day, watching TV, reading books, endless conversations that don't really need to have, but we fill up our day. But now with some awareness, not perfect, we'll notice the consequence, okay, absorbed in this, and then eventually it comes to an end, and then what's left over. What got set in motion when my mind was wrapped in that movie for an hour and a half, and then the movie ends, what's left over? What was set in motion? Or I've been scrolling, they call it, what did they call it? Doom scrolling, right? Doom scrolling for 15 minutes, and then what's left over? So much of what we get from mindful awareness, the continuity of present moment awareness, is we can read or we can comprehend cause and effect, because there are more moments of present moment awareness. We see what, oh, the mind's relating like this, the mind's doing this is what gets set in motion. And we begin to know the difference between what's helpful, wholesome, skillful, and what's not helpful, wholesome, or skillful. And that is a big part of the awakening. It's just like realizing I'm still going to do it because of the force of habit, but I'm not going to kid myself. Honey, this is not helping me, it's not helping anyone. I wish I had the wherewithal, the confidence or the courage to not do it, but right now I'm going to do it anyway. But even when we do that and drink one more night, drink too much, it's still better to connect the dots. Oh yeah, once again, I realize clearly it's not a judgment. This hasn't helped. This isn't good. Nothing good is getting set in motion here. Okay, that's good to know. So when we do act out in a way that's unskillful, it's better to know. Without the judgment and without the self-hate, that doesn't help. That's just another bad habit. Then we want to, well, what does that do when I hate myself for doing that? Oh, I just dig the hole deeper, right? That sort of hole or that depressive feeling we can have. Anyway, I'll wrap it up now because we're a couple minutes over. Remember next Tuesday, you may be thinking mindfulness is good stuff, but not come back. Well, that's just a yucky feeling, the not wanting to come back. And we know what to do with yucky feelings. Oh, it's just a yucky feeling being known. And come back to the center or come back on Zoom. Really give it these 5 weeks to see if it really makes sense in your life. You need to get a substantial taste in order to really stick with it, because we're going against the stream. The cultural stream is distraction, and we're interested in non-distraction. So you got to give it some time to really sense, oh yeah, this seems to be going in the right direction. Take care, everyone. Remember, if you want to re-listen, I'm recording right to our YouTube channel. So just go to YouTube, search for Common Ground Meditation Center. All these programs, even including older programs, are all there, archived on our YouTube channel, so you can find it. See you next Tuesday.